Hey folks, so we're back with Psych Talk, and I'm going to have a little fun with this one because I just saw the greatest episode, which if you're binge watching right now, you totally got to check this out. Alright, so Star Trek Picard. Now, if you haven't watched the full season, I'm going to recap on something that happened at the very last episode of Season 1. So please, don't miss this beautiful cinematic experience. Like, put this in your, watch later list, pause the video, and go watch Star Trek Picard. Because I don't want you to miss a single beat of that. It was absolutely beautiful, and the last episode, which I'm going to cover, reveals so much. And I'm going to talk about this from a psychological perspective. Alright, so you've been warned. Spoilers ahead, okay? If you haven't paused the video, you asked for it. So, throughout the season of Star Trek Picard, Jean-Luc Picard, played by Sir Patrick Stewart, came off as very fragile, very docile, meaning he showed his age. And I have been spending my entire life analyzing people. But in the last episode, what ended up happening was, and I'm going to cover the data part in a second, but Sir Patrick Stewart changed dynamically after he became basically an android. He changed so dynamically. His mannerism, his cadence, how he steps, his energy, it all changed. I feel like I was fooled. And that is such a beautiful experience. It really is. Because I truly, if he's not frail, then wow. But if he is frail, to be able to exude such confidence in the last episode and such poise, like I don't know if I was fooled or not. Because I truly believed he was frail. Being able to pull that off, to pull off appearing frail and then to be able to transition to appearing very strong, that is an amazing transition, and I don't know if I was fooled, and if I was, in which way I was fooled, but I don't even want to know. I really don't, because there is a beauty in somebody being able to pull off a masterful performance. There's beauty in it. But let me go over to the psychology of data, okay? Because that's what this all builds up to. Is Jean-Luc Picard dies, okay? He dies. And those moments leading up to his death too, like just the performance of it. There, he has a mastery of acting, a true mastery. And after he died, his consciousness was downloaded into the same quantum database as data, like the original data that was saved and stored. And what ended up happening was Data asked Jean-Luc Picard for a favor. Data asked Picard to kill him, to basically end his existence. He was existing in this quantum state, and he still doesn't have the emotions that other androids in the show have. But the way that he portrayed humanity from an analytical standpoint, he wanted to die to experience the brief moment of beauty that is the temporal life. And I'm going to get deeper than this. This is just skimming over the surface. We're going to get into something. Okay, but he wanted to show off the beauty that was having a finite life. Because when things fade, you give them so much more value. It's so much more precious. And then what I want to talk about, like I totally just gave you some spoilers right there. But what I want to talk about is, why aren't we immortal? So let's say that conspiracy theorists are right. Conspiracy theory is saying, we were created. Okay? Very possible based on ancient archaeology. Cool. I mean, I'm a fact-based person, and there's a lot of history and documentation. No, not documentation, but, written record and drawn record of history. I mean, going back thousands of years, okay, saying, hey, we were visited by aliens or modified or so on and so forth. I've delved into most religions and their pathology. And the long story short is, if we were engineered, it would make absolute sense for us to not be able to live forever. It really would. Beyond just the biology and physics and all of that, it makes sense that things would be designed for us to be temporal, to eventually wane and disappear. Because Data captured that concept so wonderfully in Star Trek Picard. When something exists forever, it can be nice, it can be great. Another show that you can watch on Netflix, if you want to, is The Good Place. But you gotta watch it all the way through season 4. Like, binge it out. Because, again, spoiler, okay? Spoiler. If you haven't watched that show, pause this. Put it in your to-do list. Heck, forget about it. Okay? But enjoy that experience. That philosophy that is in The Good Place as it rounds out. Alright, you've been warned about spoilers. So, the finite they had the ability to live forever in heaven, right? And then Chidi, one of the protagonists, he ends up studying everything that he ever wanted to study, visiting every place he wanted to visit, doing everything he wanted to do, and then some he didn't even know about. But in the end, he chose to disappear, the same way Data chose to disappear. When you know everything, when you've lived forever, you realize that without things being temporary, we take them for granted. And I think that's what we're doing in the US right now, is folks are so used to privilege that they don't really take into account the value of COVID-19 taking away a loved one. They're so used to privilege that they're going out and partying and so on and so forth, like, this is my life, I'm going to live it. But once you realize that things are finite, the things will eventually fade, it grants a certain beauty to that thing in front of you, whether it's good or bad. There's a certain beauty that's bestowed onto something that you know will eventually disappear. Data said it best. A butterfly that lives forever is not really a butterfly. He wanted to be human. This AI desired to experience that brief moment of knowing that your existence is finite. And that's such a poignant concept. Because once we realize that things are temporary, we take them for granted a lot less. Most people, when they go through life, before they get a terminal diagnosis, for example, when people get a terminal diagnosis, all of a sudden they start going back and I'm so sorry about this. And, God, I wish I would have spent more time. It takes the realization of things being finite for us to appreciate what we have and what we've experienced. And until that realization hits us, we don't have a true perspective of what things really are. I'll give you a personal example, which I've related in another episode. When my grandmother passed, she had a strong hand in raising me. But when she passed, I didn't feel what I knew I should be feeling. And that's part of me being autistic, all right? But what really sank in was when I picked up the phone one day after school. I was excited. I picked up the phone, I was looking up to the left. I remember exactly where her number was on the board to the left of the phone. I remember it because the moment hit me right as I'm looking at her number and getting ready to dial. I was literally right here because I remember that moment as vivid as any memory I've ever had. It was the first time I truly identified with loss. because I realized when I dialed that number, no one was going to pick up. And it gave me a different perspective on the things that I had been taking for granted. I never realized that I would truly lose her. And that finite nature gave me such perspective of beauty into all the lessons I learned from her. All the time we spent, all the smiles and laughter, all the time she had to spank my tail because I was acting up. And yes, she did. Yeah, my family did not spare the rod, let me tell you something. Or at least she didn't. If I acted up enough, she would. But realizing how finite things are gives us an appreciation for the fact that it will eventually fade. It will eventually disappear, and we won't have access to those things anymore. Whether it's people, whether it's possessions, whether it's experiences. We should be taking all of those to heart as much as humanly possible. Because just as Data said, to be a butterfly living forever is not to truly be a butterfly. He wanted to be human. And that was such a poignant description of humanity and his desire to be human. And then we see Jean-Luc Picard, after he became basically an android. So they put his consciousness into this body, kind of like Data's. They figured it out. And his first concern was, how long am I going to live? Am I going to be immortal? Because he didn't want to be immortal. He wanted to appreciate the finite nature of what it is to be human. And that's a very unique concept. A lot of people, they don't truly value it. That's why people on their deathbed are apologizing and reaching out to all these people that maybe they haven't talked to for 20, 30 years. Excuse me. Recognizing the finite nature of humanity is why we suddenly feel our own humanity, our own mortality, when we see somebody we love pass away. And if we were to look at this in a non-fantasy way, for Picard to end Data's existence the way that he did, I mean, that was such a beautiful cinematic moment. With Data just, taking a sip of, I'm guessing it was wine, laying down on the couch and just having the world's most light smile. I would imagine that would be what any AI would feel if they aspired to be human, to understand what the human experience was like. And it gives us an appreciation. Once you realize how finite life is and how quickly it can disappear, which COVID-19 is teaching us right now, you realize that you should not just take advantage of others. Like, you shouldn't take advantage of others, but you should take advantage of the experience you get with others. Because it's only temporary. When family members don't talk for years, that's time lost. That's a relationship lost. Those are memories lost. And one of the things that I've absolutely hated about mortality is I've collected a lot of knowledge. A lot of knowledge that I don't think a single person normally would collect, but I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with certain subjects and just diving in. I'm autistic. That's how I'm built. And the loss of existence doesn't bother me so much. It's the loss of the knowledge I've accumulated. That's why I want to write books. I don't want the puzzles I've solved to remain unsolved. And I understand, in some respects, the perspective that they gave Data in those final moments, those final beautiful moments. And it's a unique thing to, for example, we take granted our animals, okay? And those of you that are animal lovers, you understand where I'm going with this. But I've got a cat just a few feet away from me. And I know that she's going to pass away. She is a special needs cat with a tumor on her pancreas, right? And as annoying as she can be, I mean, she sometimes pees on the carpet when she wants to throw a fit. She will poop in the carpet when she wants to throw a fit. And she demands attention. If you don't give her attention, she throws a fit. It can be a lot. And if you don't let her sit on your lap, like, she will just throw a fit. That's just how she is. And she's super skinny. She requires a very special type of food. Otherwise, she will go into a hypoglycemic episode, and, one of these times she just won't come out of it. But I value the time that I have with that cat, because I know it's finite. She's lived easily 2.5 years longer than we expected her to, than anyone expected her to. And she's still vibrant and annoying. But I value the time that I have with her, and I value the joy that she brings me. But I also value her as a life form. This is part of the reason why, if there were ever an AI, like, super whatever it is, like AI aliens that took over, or that came over to visit the world, you'd want an autist there to talk to them. In fact, any first contact, you want an autist there to talk to them, because we think mechanically. We're going to catch things that other people won't catch at all. While they're saying, are they a threat? Can I exploit them and get some trade from them? So, you would definitely want an autist there, because we think very mechanically, and in a way I identify with Data, because I don't experience emotions like most of you. And the emotions I do experience, the few poignancies that I experience, I like the word poignant, because, I mean, it's French, and, I kind of like the arrogance of the French language. Like, don't get me wrong, as far as languages go, French is kind of arrogant. I'm just saying. Je te le français. But, like, even that just kind of sounded a little bit like bourgeoisie. So I like the word poignant. But my kind don't experience emotions like your kind do. We don't. It's just not built into us the way that it's built into you. And I can identify with Data in this one, because he has a different perspective on life, but he still values life. In some ways, he treasures life more than a lot of the humans that he worked with. He understood the value of a finite existence. And so did Jean-Luc Picard. And so did Chidi. And see, I can remember Chidi Aragonier's name, but I can't remember anybody else from The Good Place. But it's a great show on Netflix. I highly recommend watching it all the way through. If you start at the beginning, like, if you've made it this far, then haha, spoiler. But it was a beautiful experience of television. And so was that last episode of season 1 of Picard. That was a breathtaking experience to me. Just analyzing it, because I don't go through life without analyzing everything. That's another way that I relate to Data, is, like, Data's my favorite character, period. You name it, that's my dude. And the way that he analyzes everything constantly, that's what I do with life. I analyze from a psychological standpoint at every moment of every day. And I don't know how to express that, like, how to explain that in a way that any of you would understand. It's literally like breathing to me. And I know we've heard phrases like that before. And that's the thing, is, unless you experience it, you'll never know. And there is a beauty to being autistic. There's a true beauty. And the finite nature of humanity gives humanity beauty. Things won't always exist. Things are going to change, whether you're religious or whether you're scientific. Things are going to change one way or the other. We all have a finite existence. And I think that episode of Picard displayed in such a beautiful fashion a truly beautiful cinematic fashion. Like one of the finest cinematic moments I've ever seen was the last episode of Picard, and just the conversation with the finite life of Picard, and then the transition to Data. Like, you didn't know what the heck was going on. And then how the conversation played out until what Picard came, what Picard became afterwards, like what the action he chose afterwards, and Data's request. Those were beautiful moments in cinematic history. Like those were so, God, I mean, poignant is the only word that I can think of to describe it. Because how it made me feel personally, watching that and analyzing that in real time, just like Data analyzes everything, going through that was a beautiful experience. And I mean, to the creators and actors and all of that, I can't thank you enough for it. But ultimately, between that show and COVID-19, I hope people take into perspective that certain things aren't going to last forever. And to take the time to smell the roses. There is a wisdom in that sentiment. Taking time to smell the roses, to appreciate the bouquet, to appreciate the cold that's outside, to just take it all in and appreciate every moment, because those moments, they're leading up to a finality. And don't exploit others, otherwise it will come back and bite you. Your subconscious is a real thing, and at the end of your life, if you've been selfish all your life, what's going to happen? You're going to have to relive all of those. Your life will flash before your eyes. I've spoken to somebody who thought he was going to die, a personal friend of mine, yeah, he thought he was going to die, pretty accurately. And he told me, yes, your life does flash before your eyes. You remember everything in a single instant. Thankfully, somebody helped him and saved his life, because he's somebody I value and treasure. But there's a beauty in the finality of life. And I hope that in this time, that all of you remember that beauty. That all of you remember what it is to be finite. And how beautiful a rose is, because the rose will eventually wither. And then take some time to smell it while it's still here. Anyway, y'all take care. I'll catch you around. Oh, damn it.